Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I am Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
So we ranked every head coach in the Power 5 this week. It's been quite a grind, but we have finally made it to the last episode of Coaches Week. In this episode, we're of course going to rank just the top 20 overall. So we put all the Power 5 coaches in the pool and G5 and independent. So Notre Dame fans, you'll get your mention this episode. Let's get right into it. Number 20, we'll start off with a G5 coach, Billy Napier from Louisiana. He is maybe the most sought after coach in the Southeast when it comes to, every Power 5 job that comes open. His seems to be the first name mentioned, and it's not a surprise. I mean, he's killed it in recruiting at Louisiana. He's crushed it on the field as well. That was a program that was struggling before he got there. He's won double-digit games 2 years in a row, including 10-1 this past season, including a victory at Iowa State. So to me, he just seems destined to become he's already a really good coach, but I think he can accomplish it at the Power 5 level too.
Yeah, he is a highly sought after guy, and he's one of your favorites. No doubt about it. All right, let's move on to number 19 here. Underrated coach nationally, in my opinion. Mike Gundy from Oklahoma State. He's just been a model of consistency there in Stillwater, and I think that's why I say it's been underrated. He hasn't been dynamic as far as recruiting, and I think that's the main thing that holds him back as far as what people's perception of him. He's always usually in the 30s as far as recruiting, but only one season where it wasn't a winning season, and that was his very first year in Stillwater. And he's been there for almost 20 years now, or something like that. So the fact that he's kept it going for so long, he always has winning programs, whether there's high expectations, whether there's low expectations. He's competing in the Big 12 every year. He has to go up against OU every year. That's such a hard competition. Like your rival is, the class of the conference. That's a tough gig. But he's keeping that program up. He's competing them every single year. So Gundy, underrated. I think he deserves to be a little higher, personally.
Okay, moving on to number 18. It is Hugh Freeze at Liberty. Maybe a surprise to some people to see him on this list, but just go look at what he's done. I realize he's controversial, but at Ole Miss, did an A-plus job there. I realized there were sanctions at the end, but still, he was, one of the few coaches to beat Saban, so he did a great job there. And now at Liberty, has quickly turned them into a really good team. They were 10-1 last year, and they've got everybody coming back, so it looks to be probably another great year. He's just a great offensive coach.
Absolutely. Number 17, we have Luke Fickell of Cincinnati. When he was the interim coach at Ohio State about 10 years ago, it was ugly, and I didn't foresee the success that he's having now. But he's turned Cincinnati into a G5 juggernaut. Was a couple plays away last year from winning a New Year's Six Bowl against Georgia, of course. He consistently has been fielding great defenses, bringing in the best AAC recruiting classes they've really ever had. And they're expected to have a really solid season, maybe about top 10 going into next year. You just have to think he's waiting for the perfect job to open up at this point, and it very well could be next year.
Yeah, they definitely could. He's done remarkable.
Okay, so back to you, Trey.
Back to back. So that's number 16.
Serpentine draft here, Trey.
Yeah, I guess so.
No, I assigned who was highest on each coach to that person. So give a little rosy review.
Very positive, rosy view of the coaches.
Yes, and that leads to number 16, Kyle Whittingham of Utah. And it's really hard not to appreciate what he's done at Utah. I'm just amazed at how consistent he's been, and almost always has Utah relevant. You thought it might slip when they joined the Pac-12, but more often than not, they're in the mix. He's won the division a few times. They're consistently ranked, has a great bowl record. I think he's 11-3. He develops talent very well, and they consistently finish ranked higher than they do in their recruiting rankings, which is usually in about the 30s. So I'm a big Whittingham fan.
Yep, very solid. Number 15 on the list is Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. He's one of the best offensive coaches in football. He proved that at Alabama, and then as a head coach at Florida Atlantic, took over a program that was really bad, won 11 games twice in 3 years there, and has moved on to Ole Miss, and so far promising year one. Competed with Alabama, of course, during the season. Had a great game going toe to toe with them. Went 5-5, which was better than their expectations. So off to a solid start. I really believe in Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I am with you on that one. We all like Lane Kiffin here. All right, let's move on to number 14, though. We got Eddie O. This one could be a little trouble for us here, guys. Eddie O at LSU. I was the highest on him. I give him credit for winning the national title. I know it was maybe a epiphany of a year, maybe kind of a lucky year for him. He had the right coordinator hire with Joe Brady coming in, right system, right type of talent. But hey, I kind of think of it as this. So a lot of folks point to, okay, Les Miles was always winning 9-10 games there at LSU, but he couldn't ever punch through there for quite a long time. Eddie O, if you let's say you have 3 years and you play like 30 games, whatever it is, would you rather win 10 games every year, or would you rather win 15 one year and then 8-7 the other 2 years? I know what most people would say. Give me 1 year of going 15-0 and winning a national title. So that's what he's done. He's recruiting lights out. This past year, 5-5. Okay, we knew this was going to be a little bit of a down year. They lost everybody. I expect a bounce back year this year. So I think he's done a good job, and can't fault him on what he's done so far there in Baton Rouge. Okay, I'm back to back as well here, guys. I'm going to keep talking.
That was good points. Good points about Coach O, though.
All right. Jim Harbaugh, number 13 here from Michigan. Another kind of polarizing figure. Hard to rank just based off of what happened last year. And he doesn't have the national title to kind of, give him a little cushion on his fall here. But if you look at his overall record, I mean, every single year was really, really good. And remember, he took over a program from Michigan that wasn't in the greatest spot. He immediately jumped them to top 10 type team. Last year was the first year where they kind of really struggled. Of course, the defense took a major step back, and he took immediate action. I mean, he fired Don Brown, which is questionable because Don Brown did have a great track record. But this is a pivotal year for him. It really is, because if you have a couple, rough years in a row, but I don't think they will. I think you're going to bounce back, and I think I got to give him a little credit for what he's done every step of the way, considering he started at San Diego, literally University of San Diego, did great. Stanford, terrible program, made them legit. Even in the NFL, 49ers. So everywhere he's been successful. I got to give him credit for career.
I agree with that, yeah. Number 12, we have Mack Brown from North Carolina. And the Tar Heels were 5-18 the 2 years before he got there. And he has immediately made them competitive. In year 2 this past season, went to the Orange Bowl. And they don't appear to be going anywhere because the recruiting is at an insane level for North Carolina. So you really can't have asked for much better in his 2 seasons there. And he's hired a great staff. It's just, I think he deserves to be this high.
Sam Howell another year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not foresee this immediate success. It's been fun to watch in part 2 of Mack at UNC. All right, moving on to number 11, Mario Cristobal of Oregon. And he has rebuilt Oregon into a strong power, probably the strongest team in the West. A couple years ago, I didn't really think a whole lot of him. I had respect for him, but maybe I wouldn't have ranked him this high. Let's put it that way. Won the Rose Bowl a couple years ago. Wins the Pac-12 this past year. The recruiting has just taken out to another level since he's been there. He's getting NFL talent. He shows his coaching ability in the trenches as he focuses on the line play, particularly the O-line. Guys like Penny Sewell even had a pretty good run back in his FIU days with guys like T.Y. Hilton. He's just a great coach that's elevated Oregon.
Yep. Going to number 10 on our list. We're to the top 10, James Franklin at Penn State. And it starts with his turnaround at Vanderbilt, which is not, terribly long ago, and remains one of the most impressive coaching jobs of the last decade. Just unreal what he did. And at Penn State, too, he took over a team that was a program that was kind of in a tough spot, and he's now won 11 games 3 of the last 5 years. Has them, as the second strongest program in the Big Ten. And 2020 was a rough season, but it's one bad year. The record was 4-5. They weren't as bad as their record, like if you look at the advanced metrics. So 1 year is not going to eliminate all the great things that James Franklin has done.
I'd agree there. Number 9 is Brian Kelly of Notre Dame. I mean, he's just a winner. He turned Grand Valley into winning the D2 title, got Central Michigan winning big, had an unbeaten year at Cincinnati, then got Notre Dame to a national title within his first few years. I mean, his career at Notre Dame over the last decade or so, he had one bad 4-8 year in 2016. But since then, he has won 10 or more games every year, including a couple playoff appearances. I know they've been throttled it when they've made those playoffs, and he hasn't quite gotten over the hump. But it's hard to appreciate him not getting him there. I mean, no one has been able to get Notre Dame relevant in the last 25 years or whatever it was. Like, he's made them the old power that they were for the most part. So good for Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, Trey. I'm high on Brian Kelly too. I think the Notre Dame cachet, I think he's a little underrated because of, you think Notre Dame top tier, but they haven't necessarily been that way. He's done a great job. All right, let's move on here to number 8. We got Matt Campbell from Iowa State, an Iowa State coach in the top 10 nationally. That's oof. And I was ambitious on him as far as my rankings. I had him 3rd overall, which Iowa State is, I mean, you could argue it's the worst Power 5 job in the nation. I mean, historically, it's just so hard to have success. Maybe Vandy, but I said you could argue. Anyways, it's brutally
now you're arguing
tough
with yourself.
Yeah, he's talking about himself.
Yeah, exactly. I have that argument in my head. I got a little lonely during COVID times.
Yeah.
All right. So, no, but for the past 4 years there for Campbell, the best 4-year stretch Iowa State's ever had. They just won a Fiesta Bowl. And if that's not good enough, like, they returned so much talent coming in for this year. They're going to be a preseason top 10 team. Might be the best team they've ever had. Last year was the best team they ever had. This year could be even better. So he has risen that program from the dead. He took over a program from Paul Rhodes that wasn't in the greatest place. I mean, it was never in the greatest place. So if you put him in a place like Georgia, you put him in a place like, Texas, Alabama, he's going to kill it. All right. So I give him so much credit for making Iowa State a legit 2-year in a row top 10 type of team. Unreal job.
Yeah, you laid out the case great there, and especially if they live up to the hype this year and they are a legit top 10 team, then having him 3rd is going to look less ridiculous. It doesn't look ridiculous now, but
less
Michael, I think.
Well, I didn't mean the lack of a better word. It's going to look even better. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
Michael, I think we should just let Ryan and anti-Ryan take the rest of the show.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, number 7 on the list is Jimbo Fisher. He won a national championship at Florida State. I know the last year ended there, and maybe he kind of checked out, but still, overall, that was a great tenure. Goes over to A&M, immediately makes them better. Might not have shown up as much in the win-loss record, but you look at the metrics, they were much, much better right when he took over. And then this past year, of course, going 9-1 with their only loss to Alabama. So, and the recruiting, I haven't even mentioned that yet. It is at an elite level to where it's possible that A&M is becoming an elite program under him.
Absolutely. All right, so staying within the SEC, number 6, Dan Mullen of Florida. And I personally have been a big Mullen fan on this podcast over the last few years. He might come off as a little bit unlikable at times, but he just consistently wins. Did great things in Starkville. Obviously, that year with Dak was amazing. But one thing that stands out to me about Mullen is that when the talent or QBs have turned over, he continues to thrive. Like, no one thought that Felipe Franks was going to be all that much. The first year with him, won a New Year's Six game. Then in year 2 with Franks goes down with an injury, has to turn to Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask ends up having an incredible next couple years. They were a score away from beating Bama in the SEC title this past year. He just seems to get a lot out of his teams.
Yeah, and he took over a Florida team that had just gone 4-7. So him making them a consistent, one of the 5 or 10 best teams in the country, it seems like, that's great.
Yep. Leading over to the Big Ten, we got number 5, Ryan Day. And I actually had him 3rd, but Day, I'll admit, Day is one of the the most difficult people to grade just because of the situation he walked into. We all know what Urban left him was a gift. But I've been really impressed how he hasn't let it slip whatsoever. He's taken the reins and run. His offenses in the first couple years have been just next level. And believe it or not, he's even up to the recruiting, which is surprising. I like how he's handled himself in the media. He's shown a fire about the Michigan rivalry. And, I understand why others might put him lower, but he ain't slowing down soon. And not everyone could have walked into his situation and done what he's done so far.
Yeah, and even if you are lower on him right now, it just seems like it looks like they're going to keep winning 12 games there every year, and he's going to rise everyone's list if you don't already have him top 5.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, let's move on here to number 4. We got Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma. He's, really similar to what Ryan Day has experienced. He took over a program that was in a great spot from Bob Stoops, but again, he might have taken it up a notch. The offense has, of course, gone up a notch. Whether it's Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray, he's just had a remarkable run there with some Heisman Trophy winners. The offense has been incredible. Defense, obviously, the first couple years was a little worrisome. But he's adjusted, right? He hired Alex Grinch. He hired him away from Ohio State, who did a great job before that at Washington State. And the defense got better, no doubt about it. The defense was actually pretty darn strong this past year. It didn't necessarily finish all that great, but they have gotten a lot better on that side of the ball. So if that improvement can keep happening, you trust Lincoln Riley with the offense, making a couple playoffs. I mean, they win the Big 12 every year. I'm not sure what else you could do to prove that you're a good coach. He's done a good job.
Yeah, it's his fingerprints are on the offense. The offense is great because of him, and you can see that. And that happened when he was offensive coordinator before he got there. Yeah. He upped the offensive game for Bob Stoops. But we move on to number 3, Kirby Smart at Georgia. He was a play away from winning the national title. So if he did that, then I think nobody would have a problem putting him this high on the list. And probably not that many people will anyway, because he's brought in multiple number 1 recruiting classes, and he has Georgia behind, I think, only Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama as far as the strongest programs in college football.
I'd put him neck and neck with Ohio State.
Yeah, they could be. I don't necessarily disagree there. I mean, especially if he gets this offense fixed, which he seems committed to doing. Yeah. Bringing in Todd Monken and JT Daniels, they look like they're going to be strong next year. They got a shot to win it all this upcoming year. So
they do.
Consistently winning double-digit games. I mean, 12 games, it feels like. So, yeah.
It's like 4 straight top 10 finishes, I think, for Georgia. Like, what else?
Yeah, 4 straight top 7 finishes.
Oh, squeeze me.
Yeah. All right, so now we've kind of got probably everybody's consensus top 2, and we got number 2, Dabo Swinney of Clemson. And, since 2015, the worst they've finished is 4th. That's crazy. He's winning national titles, churning out talent. You could go on and on, read a bunch of different stats on how good Clemson has been under him, but most of them. I mentioned this on our ACC ranking episode, but the fact that he's turned Clemson into a household brand where you rattle off Clemson along with Alabama and Ohio State every year just shows why he has to be number 2 on this list.
Yeah, it's unreal what he's done. It's taken that program that's never seen that success and made him into one of the top 2 programs there is. So, absolutely. And he was an interim coach. He was an interim coach back in the day.
I mean, I wish we had a podcast back then, because I have to imagine I would have hated that hire, because
exactly.
He was the receivers coach, and it was just.
And you wouldn't have looked all that bad for 4 years or so.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't. Yeah, it's not like he got off to an amazing start. That's true.
Yep. All right, let's move on to number 1 here. Nick Saban from Alabama.
Explanation. No explanation.
Case closed.
I mean, he's the greatest college football coach of all time.
It was a better argument with Dabo maybe a couple years ago, and you could still argue, but yeah, I agree. Pretty unanimous. Saban number 1.
I mean, isn't it unanimous that he's the best college coach of all time at this point? Like,
yeah,
not even best coach now, but like ever.
Yeah.
I would say so. It's tough to grade eras,
Yeah.
but it's hard to argue against.
Yeah.
John Heisman, maybe, I don't know. Didn't he coach? Didn't he win 220-0 or something like that? Anyway, that's an aside. Let's get to the overall list here. So we're showing the top 20. What are your? How about the snubs? What was your biggest snub from your own list? Because the way we did this is we combined all of our lists, averaged them together. But who missed out on yours, Trey?
I would actually say Gary Patterson of TCU. Some people might think, oh, that's just for a career achievement. And sure, that's an element of it. But his past can't be understated. Like, he transitioned TCU from the Mountain West to the the Big 12. There was a period in the middle 2000s where they were winning 11 or more games. They won a Rose Bowl. And, like, even though recently it hasn't been all that great, they're kind of all or nothing. They still had, like, 3 of the last 7 years, they've finished in the top 10. So they're not totally inept. I'm going to give him one more shot this year to really prove himself in the Big 12.
Yeah, this will be a big year for him. He could have a 10-win season this year and make anyone look stupid, make us look stupid for having him, I think, 6th on our Big 12 list. So we'll see. But my biggest snub was, I guess, 2, where Kirk Ferentz and Pat Fitzgerald finished 21st and 22nd on our combined list, and they were both in my top 20. So I'll throw the 2 of them out there. Maybe Gus Malzahn too. He was in my top 20 just barely.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I had Pat Fitzgerald relatively high. He was in my top 20 as well. So I guess Trey had him pretty low. Calling you out on that one, Trey.
Wow.
I would also put in somebody that was in my top 20 with Dave Clawson. What he's done at Wake Forest is pretty darn good run. I think it was 5 straight bowl games, or is it 4? I can't remember, 4 or 5. Let's just go with 4.
He's taken
either way.
Yeah, he's taken them to 5 of their, I think, 15 in history.
All right, well, then maybe it's 5 then. So, I mean, what he's done there, building a consistent winner in Winston-Salem as far as football goes, that is a pretty tough feat. So, I give credit to the little guys that are, winning at small places.
Okay, last question. Which ranking is going to make people the most upset that are watching this? Let us know in the comments which one
Christ
is most triggering.
I wanted to throw in Paul Christ as far as a snub, just because
okay.
I know it's a system, and then Wisconsin's kind of got it going, but he's had a lot of success there, and it's hard to deny.
So someone, in terms of being the most upset, that's tough to say. I think I'll look at James Franklin. He can be pretty polarizing. We had him 10th. Some people just tend to have a short-term memory. They focus on, last year they started 0-5, but we've talked about it. That 0-5 was a little misleading. Obviously, the very first game against Indiana could have, by a fingertip, could have been a win. But they've won a Big Ten title. They consistently have to deal with Michigan and, of course, Ohio State in their own division. And Michael, you mentioned it earlier. His Vanderbilt days alone are remarkable, especially in hindsight.
Yeah. I don't know if people will be upset about James Franklin, but maybe. My thought was us having Jim Harbaugh ahead of Coach O. I think that's going to be one that a lot of people strongly disagree with. But you can take a look at our Big Ten coach rankings episode for our thoughts on Harbaugh, and I guess the SEC one for Coach O. But I'll just make one point here that Trey's point kind of derails my point here, but I was going to say I thought most people would be okay with Franklin relatively where he's at, and Jim Harbaugh has basically an identical Big Ten record since he joined the conference, since he became Michigan's head coach,
they're very
as
similar
James
records.
Franklin. So seems reasonable that they should be somewhat close to each other.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. I was going to say Jim Harbaugh as well and Eddie O, but I'll throw out another one. At 15, we had Lane Kiffin. I think some folks, I feel like you're either pretty high on him or you're just like not buying at all on Lane Kiffin. And I can understand it just because of the fact that, he hasn't had the, big time success at a Power 5 school. He did it great at FAU. Tough situation at USC. That wasn't really his fault at all. Tennessee short stint, 5-5 here, first year Ole Miss. So there isn't that proven track record where all these guys in the top, well, most of them in the top 20. If you're at a Power 5, if you're a Power 5 coach, you've had some major success at a Power 5 school, which he hasn't necessarily had yet.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, that'll do it for our top 20 head coach rankings. That'll do it for rankings week. We made it. Be sure to subscribe to our channel if you like college football. We've got videos up every single week, and within the next month or two, we're going to have a quarterback rankings week. So we'll kind of be the same format, and we'll get you primed for the 2021 season. So again, be sure to subscribe. See you next week.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.